I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Segal.
And welcome to this preview of our final episode of Shrinking Trump.
In this week's episode, John and I say goodbye to our audience after 69 episodes. This is our 70th. But we have a lot to cover in this last show. First of all, we have some interviews with some of our favorite guests, and also a discussion of Trump's speech at Quantico. Right, John?
Right. And the bubbling up of people who are starting to talk about him having dementia and invoking the 25th Amendment. I think this is really a very flagrant example and something that of deep clinical significance, right? Yeah. That he's going on and on, of course, in a narcissistic way, right? Because he's always a malignant narcissist. He's a malignant narcissist with dementia. So what happens when you have a malignant narcissist who has dementia? He tells you about how great his signature is. Right? Instead of telling you about like actual accomplishments and policies of like, it's like, everybody loves my signature and my paper. Oh, this paper, it's amazing paper. I mean, everyone says it's the best paper and it's got the gold eye of those idiots who have the bad paper. It's the same thing he was doing with the grass, talking about on and on for like 10 minutes about how he knows grass and he's only using the best grass and he had grass at his golf courses and no one's talking about grass. That's not even part of the conversation.
John, he meandered this way for the whole speech. It's an hour long. It's even worse than the UN speech that we covered last week. But there's also dangerous things that he said. I want to go next to how he considers being nominated for the Nobel Prize. And he begins by saying that he stopped 7 wars in 7 months. And if he can solve the one in Gaza, it will be 8 wars in 8 months. And he just mentioned that, and he goes on to say, if this works out.
So if this works out, we'll have 8 in 8 months. That's pretty good. Nobody's ever done that. Will you get the Nobel Prize? Absolutely not. They'll give it to some guy that didn't do a damn thing. They'll give it to a guy that wrote a book about the mind of Donald Trump and what it took to solve the wars. And he'll get the Nobel Prize will go to a writer. No, but let's see what happens. But it's be a big insult to our country. I will tell you that. I don't want it. I want the country to get it.
Well, I'm expecting the Nobel Prize for my book about the mind of Donald Trump.
What an odd association.
Yeah.
That someone writing about him will get the Nobel Prize. That's not who gets the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
It's people who do things that create peace. And so that's a very narcissistic and odd association, isn't it?
It's a narcissistic, demented association. Seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In other words, people have dementia, their personality disorders typically get worse, and more primitive and more disorganized, right? But they're still who they are, but just without the cognitive capacity to contain it and express it and be on topic. So he's talking about, he's telling this lie that he solved 8 wars in 8 months and how great he is and how we should get the Nobel Prize. Okay. And then he goes on to say, but of course they won't give it to me, because they don't like me. And they'll probably give it to a nobody who did nothing. Okay. But like you said, then it might be a nobody who did nothing to actually create some peace somewhere on the earth. They don't give the Nobel Peace Prize to authors. They give it to people who create peace. So the idea that they're going to give it to a nobody, they're going to give it to somebody who wrote about the mind of Donald Trump. In other words, it's got to somehow circle back to him, right?
It did. It did.
Right. So, but it's a bizarre association, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's so flimsy.
It doesn't make sense. He says it very reasonably.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably what's going to happen. Then you think about it, and it makes no sense.
The other guest that I wanted to reprise today is Joe Walsh, because Joe Walsh, I thought, well, I'm going to let him speak for himself. But according to Joe, Harry, you and I are on the enemies list. you think maybe Harry shouldn't come back from Paris because they might not let him back in the country. And we all kind of, haha. And then he said, well, I'm kind of not kidding. I like to take a little index here, the risk index. So I asked George Conway, how much risk do you think we're at? We're the lowest level of the intelligentsia. We're the talking heads 3 levels down from MSNBC. But still, they're trying to get everyone, right? They're trying to silence everyone. So, Joe, what would your assessment be of our risk, the 3 of us, our risk indicator, and what kind of fears or fantasies do you have, or are you feeling confident?
Oh, I'm scared to death. Look, from the moment I came out against Trump, gosh, almost 7 years ago now, I've lived with daily and weekly threats. It's gotten much worse since he was sworn in. And so, Harry, before you came on, John and I were talking. We have a family wedding in London this summer. I've never been to London. I've never been anywhere. But I am legitimately afraid about going because I'm afraid about getting back home. I'm afraid about being let back home. So, John, to answer your question, again, I'm not at the top of Trump's enemies list. I know I'm on the list, but I also know you two are. I also know they have an in-depth list of everyone who's even minutely public to super public who opposes them. And it's their aim to go after all of us.
How do you see things now after that speech to the generals with the government shutdown in process? What do you think?
I mean, as you know, I'm always the person trying to lean on the optimistic side of things. What I see is obviously overreach on the positive side, right? Like I think one of the things he does is he fumbles his cards he's handed. Like the shutdown, for example. Sometimes Democrats, the healthcare messaging is smart and disciplined, but at the same time, I think they need to expand it to broader, more urgent anti-authoritarian messaging. But he's handing that to them on a platter because he goes ahead and he does the Russell Vote Project 2025 post. What a day for me to be on, given how much I've covered Project 2025, where Trump says that he and Vote are going to go. He said of Project 2025 fame are going to meet to talk about purging the federal government, which is a key Project 2025 goal. Him saying that hands Democrats a messaging layup to say this is a Project 2025 shutdown, and now they can make the case about his broader authoritarian agenda, unhinged deterioration. Like it's not just about like whether or not he has an ailment. It's just this guy is manic, and you can see he's the worst he's ever been. He keeps getting worse. He can't sit still. He's being a psycho right now. He's behaving like one, and it's something that any American can see that this is not sustainable to be moving with this angry ferocity he's moving with.
The saddest thing isn't about you. It isn't about me, and it isn't about our small cadre of dedicated listeners. It's about the country and the world. That things would get to the point. I mean, could we believe, a year ago, let's say, that we would get to the point that we'd be afraid to do a podcast on YouTube because we're expressing views that are critical of the president and the government? I mean, this is really bad. We've really fallen into a very, very dire, place. And there's no sugarcoating it. There just isn't. That's why I'm kind of glad that this new group, if they do decide to take the show, are going to be helping people more to cope with what's going on. We've been warning and warning and warning. I started Duty to Warn in 2017, been warning and warning for 10 years. Well, there's only so much warning you can do. How many times can you say the British are coming? Or if the British troops are billeted in your house, okay, you don't need anyone to tell you the British are coming. They're here.
Now, John, for this segment, I'm going to have the last word because we'll be back in a second. I agree with everything John said. It is sad and it is a dangerous time, but I don't think it's over. I think things can change politically in ways that you can't predict. And our guest, Ahmed, really was very eloquent about trajectories in which things could return. But we'll have to wait and see. So that's the preview of our final show. It will stream live on Friday, this Friday at 3 p.m. on the Really American Network. You can watch it as a live stream, or you can watch it afterwards on YouTube. And you can listen to it as an audio podcast on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever else you get your podcast. Right, John?
Yes. And we want to say goodbye and thank you for watching the show. And to quote Edward R. Murrow, goodbye and good luck.
Take care.